We bought the cheapest new V8 sports car for sale, but the question is, should you? A few months ago, we bought this, a 2024 Ford Mustang. It's the GT trim, it's got a 5-liter Coyote V8 under the hood, and that's about it. Because it is just about as base as you're gonna find a Mustang these days. Now, the thing about Mustangs is, some of them have gotten quite expensive. A quick search on Auto Trader, not sponsored, although I wish it was, shows that some dealers are asking $60,000, $70,000 plus for a Mustang GT, especially like if you get a dark horse trim. You can get one for less though, quite a bit less. The new Ford Mustang GT starts at $44,200 after destination charges and acquisition fee. However, if you look at Auto Trader, most Mustangs you'll find in dealer inventory will be at least $45,000, $46,000, $47,000 MSRP after a couple options. However, there are deals to be had. Oftentimes Mustangs are discounted $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, which means you can realistically pick these up for $42,000 to $44,000, even with a couple options. So what did we pay for our 2024 Mustang GT? Well, the sticker on this car was like $47,000, which is by no means an affordable Mustang. However, this Mustang, along with a bunch of others, can be had for well under sticker. Even without haggling, there's quite a bit of money on the hood on a lot of these new Mustangs if you do even a little bit of searching around. So we paid $42,000 for this car, middle of winter, bought it from a dealer that primarily focuses on trucks. They just wanted to offload it, but there's a lot more like this out online. So 42 grand, still a lot of money. But keep in mind, we are living in an era where you can get a Volkswagen Golf GTI for around $40,000, a Mazda Miata for around $40,000. So $42,000 in today's market, unfortunately, I hate to say it, is not crazy expensive. You join me in the Mustang's natural habitat, not about to tackle a drag strip, but sitting at a red light, because we forget that the ethos of the Mustang is fundamentally a relatively affordable, powerful, but still livable car that can be used in a multitude of seasons for a multitude of reasons. And the Mustang excels in traffic, in daily commuting, in cruising on the highway. Specifically, this Mustang, the most affordable Mustang. Now, there's a bunch of different variants, and I've driven a bunch of different variants, and let me tell you what, the performance pack cars are cool, and they look cool, and they've got big wheels and bright blue Brembo brakes, and that is awesome, but they are incredibly uncomfortable in day-to-day life. The seats alone are just trying to squeeze the beans out of you at every opportunity they can get, whereas the standard Mustang, sure, the interior looks a little bit like a McDonald's Happy Meal toy, but it's fantastic because it's easy to use, the seats are squishy, they're not too overly bolstered, it's relatively quiet in here, it doesn't bang over bumps and potholes, it soaks them all up. And that's why I really do like this car a lot, is because when you're just cruising around, the Mustang is really in its element, and it's better than most people would expect. So what makes this car such a good daily driver? It has a 107-inch wheelbase, which makes it an inch longer in wheelbase than a Toyota RAV4, and that gives it a cushy ride. Also helping in the ride, the wheel tire combo on this car. So we're rolling on a set of 18-inch wheels, which do look a little bit like shopping cart wheels, but it means we've got a super thick sidewall, a 255/45 R18 tire on this puppy, an all-season tire, by the way, which also helps with the ride quality. It also has exceptional ground clearance for a performance car between 5.5 and 6 inches, which is pretty much exactly the width of my head, or about the height of a curb, so you're not always slamming this puppy on the underside of speed bumps and parking lots. Good sized trunk as well, over 13 cubic feet, and those rear seats do fold down, increasing the cargo capacity, although it's worth noting the rear seats are pretty much only for cargo because they are tiny. And then of course we come to the engine, 4th gen Coyote V8, 486 horsepower, nothing new to you there, but what was super surprising is when we started driving this car, the fuel economy is shockingly good for the horsepower. I mean, we are averaging on the highway easily 24, 25 mpg, around town in some mixed driving, 18, 19, which is really pretty good for the power output. Finally, a beautiful canyon road. It's time to unleash the Mustang. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo! Wow, what an engine. And in a straight line, this car is such a ripper. The problem is, then you come to a turn. And honestly, the problem is not the Mustang per se, the problem is with our Mustang. And this is the part where you call us dumb, because if we did want to have fun in the canyons, you definitely do want to get that performance pack, which I've been talking about a bunch and go back and forth on it. But look, the performance pack changes the differential, the springs, the sway bars, there's a K-brace, there's a strut tower brace. I mean, it's a lot of stuff, let alone the wheels and the tires and the brakes, all for $4,995. It's pretty good value. If all you care about is doing big smoky burnouts and getting the back end sideways, then yeah, the 5-liter Coyote base model Mustang will do that brilliantly, because the tires are pizza cutters and they're all seasons, and the suspension is really soft, so you get a lot of weight transfer to upset the rear end. Yeah, it's really good at going sideways. If you want to have a controlled, consistent, fast canyon run, the standard Mustang's not the car for you. Here's the thing. You pitch the Mustang into a turn and the whole thing kind of rolls, and then it comes out of the turn, you hit a bump, and there's not a ton of rebound control. It also doesn't have active suspension, so if I put it into a more sporty mode, it really doesn't change the suspension character very much. It just makes the steering artificially heavy, and then the throttle response very nimble. The steering itself is not super communicative. Yeah, I mean, the ratio is fine, and actually the grip is okay given what it is, but there's not a lot of response coming from the steering wheel. The transmission is incredible. I mean, the power and the transmission are world class. The way that it responds, even in automatic mode, to quick turns, slowing down, downshifting, upshifting, it's always in the right gear. It's always right where that Coyote wants to be. And that engine, I mean, the engine is like nothing else on the market. It is incredible, and it pulls so hard in every RPM. And I know old American cars got a reputation for having a very lumpy V8 that didn't want to rev. This is not that engine. This engine will rev to 7,500 RPM, and it makes power everywhere, and the response is immediate. Rolling over in the seat, and that's because we don't have the Recaro seats. And do I care? Not at all. Even though that performance package is good value and gets you a lot of stuff and does really change the performance of the car on a twisty road, I still probably wouldn't get it, because ultimately it is still a large, heavy, comfortable car. With the performance pack, these weigh like 3,800 pounds in coupe form, so you're knocking on the door of 4,000 pounds. And on the press launch of this car, I did take one up into the hills above Los Angeles, and yes, it is very fast, but it's still not a ton of fun. It doesn't feel very nimble or light on its feet, and it will do it, but it doesn't feel super happy, tackling Angela's Crest. So I would buy this car with the intention of using it as a cruiser, and then using it as a cruiser. If you want a sports car, get a Miata. So the interior of this new Mustang, the S650 generation, is dominated by these two enormous screens, and I know a lot of folks don't love this look. People miss the physical gauges and buttons, and I do agree to an extent. However, this latest generation of sync system is really good. Now, obviously, you do have wireless Apple CarPlay, probably not much of a surprise there, but the actual sync system is very useful and does have a bunch of great features that are easy to use and easy to access. Plus, it's pretty quick and the resolution is quite good. Like, I love physical climate controls, but I have to say the Ford slider system here works pretty darn well. Same thing with the seat heaters, right? It's all very fast and intuitive. The My Mustang pages in the sync system are pretty cool. So you have a number of track apps, acceleration timer, brake performance, lap timer. That's all pretty cool. Auxiliary gauges are great if you are planning on doing some track work. You can also change color themes, that kind of thing. But the cluster theme is by far the coolest part. So you have a bunch of different cluster option. So this is going to be your normal standard cluster option. Looks okay, but if you go into sport, well, that's now going to change the look to a very angular design. Track is going to make it very horizontal in the way that it positions a tachometer right up front and center. There's a calm mode, which gets rid of pretty much everything. But my favorite modes are the vintage modes. So there's a Fox body setting, which looks like an 87 through 93 Mustang Fox body, but they just added this, which is so cool. The classic 67 through 68 Mustang gauge cluster. And they actually added this over the air because this vehicle is capable of over the air updates. This didn't cost us anything. It just showed up one day. I love that. So the Mustang steering wheel is another highlight. Even on this relatively base model Mustang, it's a leather wrapped wheel with a flat bottom. The faux carbon fiber is dumb because it's a cruiser. I don't know why I need that, but the rest of it's really cool. Feels good in the hand. Paddle shifters for the 10-speed automatic, and the mode selector also is very cool. Let me clear this seatbelt warning here. So we've got a bunch of different drive modes that do change the character of the car, especially like traction control, options, steering programming, throttle response, and I really do like the animation that they've programmed into this gauge cluster when you go between the modes. It looks very, very cool. The best feature of this car that not all Mustangs have, but this one was optioned with it when we bought it from the dealer, was the performance exhaust. Now, definitely recommend getting or ordering this option. It's not that expensive, but it changes the exhaust sound from quiet all the way up to a track mode. And the difference between the settings is dramatic. So here's what quiet sounds like. And here's what the track sounds like. I honestly can't believe that they're able to sell this car even with the normal exhaust mode on, because it is so loud and it sounds that good. You know, when this new generation of Mustang came out, the motoring press gave Ford quite a lot of grief because technically this is an all new generation. S650 replaced the S550. And a lot of us, I don't think, believed them when they first said that, because a lot of this is mighty similar to the outgoing model. And there was a big stink, and it ultimately didn't matter at all, because this is a car in a class of its own. And, you know, I know we can talk about how Camaro's gone and the V8 Challenger's gone, and, you know, the Mustang is all that's left, but the Mustang has always occupied a really significant portion of the hearts of a lot of Americans because it's always been relatively affordable. It's always had a fantastic engine. It's always been a little bit more compact and tidy than some of the Chargers and the Challengers that it competed against throughout the years. And this new Mustang continues that legacy. And sure, like, the Coyote is not vastly different than a 2023 Coyote. It doesn't matter at all. I really just don't care, because it still is magnificent. The sound, the response, the performance for the $40,000 territory is unheard of. And yeah, you could probably get a used Tesla, which would beat this car 0 to 60, but it's not going to have the same experience, not at all. This is a really interesting car that you really have to live with to see the benefit, because if you look at it at face value, yeah, the interior's a little cheap, and yeah, the design's not that different than the outgoing model, and the Coyote is tweaked, but it's not all that different, and it doesn't matter because it still is the definitive pony car with a fantastic engine, a great look, and a very comfortable, relatively refined place to spend time. It's just a great car. It just really is. Ultimately, after living with this car for a few months, I'm pretty confident in saying this is the one you want. The coupe, automatic, sacrilegious, I know, with the exhaust and just about nothing else, because you pay a lot for Mustang options between visual options, interior features, a leather interior, convertible. I mean, it can get really expensive, well into the $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 range if you go all the way up, and you get the same experience with a $45,000 Mustang that you would with like a $68,000 Mustang. So that's the one you want. Find one with a discount. You know, dealers can oftentimes add markups to vehicles, which is a very frustrating experience, but they can also discount vehicles. There's a lot of these out there, even in like within a 500 radius of Colorado, which is not really Mustang terrain. There's something like 300 new ones for sale. So haggle a little bit, get a few $1,000s off, get the base model. That's the car you want. And it's a hell of a lot more fun than a $40,000 Golf GTI, I'll tell you that much. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. A big thank you to Alex behind the camera. We'll see you in the next video.